Hey, folks, welcome. We're going to get started in just a few moments. Stand by.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Actually, good afternoon to everyone except for those of you on Pacific Daylight Time or Standard Time, as it is now, I think. Welcome to our webinar today. Today, we'll be talking about ProTax, specifically ProTax T2. And today's webinar is the introduction to ProTax and ProTax T2. At the beginning of December, we will be teaching the advanced ProTax T2 webinar. So I have a link for that at the end of this webinar today. Okay, so my name is Jason Hasty. I hail from Calgary, Alberta. I am a CPA CA. I got my CA in 2001, so going on over 20 years now. And I also received my master's in professional accounting from the University of Saskatchewan, and that was in the year 2000. Some things about today's webinar. It will run from 1 p.m. until 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For those of you out west, that's 11 o'clock. And for myself, that's 12 noon, right at lunchtime. We will take 2 quick breaks for you this morning. And before the second break, or after the second break, we will actually be doing a tax return ourselves. So you will have that one hands-on assignment today, which will be after the second break. Also want to mention that the ProTax training guide, you should see the link in the webinar chat area. They should be posting it or have posted it already. Last year, we had some emails going out with the links for the ProTax training guide. This year, it's available directly through the webinar chat. Very, very informative guide. I suggest you download it. As well, you will see the sample questions that we have for today for our December advanced ProTax T2 webinar, as well as the January and February T1 webinars that I will be hosting for you as well. I have a bit of a cold, so apologies. Hopefully you can all hear me well enough. I know it is cold and flu season, and I did my COVID test, no COVID, but just been a bad cold. So hopefully most of you out there are feeling well. Questions, again, please put those in the Q&A area. You won't be able to respond in the chat area. And today's webinar is not really for a chat itself, but definitely, absolutely, we'd love for you to answer or to ask any questions for us. We have a number of Intuit people that are available to answer your questions today, and I will try and look through them as well and answer as we go. Okay, for those of you collecting CPDs or needing your CPDs, today's course is eligible for up to 2 CPD credits. It is a 2-hour course, so it will be the 2 credits. I know that on the email you received with the link, it said 1 credit, but I just checked with the Intuit team, and it is a 2-hour course for 2 credits. Those certificates should be emailed to you within 1 week of attending your class. If you haven't received them within a week, please reach out to Intuit for those very important credits. As a disclaimer on today's webinar, as well as all of the webinars, just a note that all information in this webinar is for educational, informational purposes, not legal or tax advice, any opinions, those specific matters. So no legal or tax advice there. The webinar, its contents and presenter are not to be relied upon for tax treatment of items reflected on tax returns. Okay, so today's program, what we're going to be going through, first we're going to be looking at books to tax, and this is Intuit's, taking it from the book side of things all the way to your tax return. So we are focusing specifically on ProTax today, but we will also be looking at the books to tax environment and how you can easily move your monthly, your year-end books, do the preparation all the way to the tax return. Obviously, doing an introduction to ProTax. Today's webinar, again, is the intro, and then the one in December is the advanced one. And we will be speaking specifically on T2 today. So that's corporate tax returns. T1 webinars will happen in January and February this year during the T1, the tax filing season. After the introduction to ProTax, we'll be looking at setup and navigation. So learning to navigate and make your way around ProTax. And of course, very importantly, how to get help. Intuit has provided many resources. One of the best resources that we utilize in tax help is the chat itself. And it has the experts at your fingertips to give you help on any tax issues that you need assistance with. We will be doing the introduction to work papers. So this is Intuit's environment of something very similar if you've used Caseware before or other types of working papers to prepare the year-end file and the tax returns for clients. And then we will be going through a basic T2. So we'll be running through a basic T2, and then you will actually get a turn to do an example as well. So remember to download those materials from the link in the webinar chat. Okay, so books to tax, the overview. Right here, we have a screenshot of QuickBooks Online Accountant, or QBOA. For those of you that are familiar with that, that is the resource that allows you to manage all of your QuickBooks Online accountants, all of your QuickBooks Online clients, and gives you the database for the client management as well as their bookkeeping and their books themselves. To access the books review side of it, you have to be in the QBOA environment. So in your own file, you can notice that it says accountant at the top left hand of this. That signifies that you are in QBOA. and available to review a tax client's books. The second part of this to look at is to ensure that you are in your client's file, because you will not have access for the books to tax unless you are actually in your client's file. So that's just near the hamburger icon, those three little lines at the top. To the right of that, that's where you access your client's books in QBO. And then once you are in that, you will see on the left-hand side, the books to tax option, which you can then select. And on this screen, the books review is the first of three tabs. So we have books review, we have work papers, and we have income tax. We'll be briefly talking about the books review, but the focus today will be on work papers and income tax. The books review tool focuses on your period end accounting or bookkeeping. So whether that's your monthly, your quarterly, even your annual period end, that allows you to review those books on a constant basis. And this is probably one of the most powerful tools that bookkeepers have in reviewing their clients' books. There are two different areas to that. You will notice that on this screenshot, it is selected with cleanup. So cleanup allows a lot of different options for you. You've got the setup, you've got transaction review, account reconciliation, final review, and wrap up. If you are in the monthly option, which is the drop down, that's where you can review your monthly or your quarterly financials. You will not have access to the setup tab, but you will have access to the other tabs as well. Now, the work papers is what focuses you on your year-end work. So this is kind of getting you from your client's books into the year end, where you're going to make any adjustments, you're going to look at the year-end financial statements, things like that, and get everything ready for the tax return. So we will be going through this in a little bit. Very, very powerful part of the QBOA environment, allows you to do a lot of things. Some cool additions this year in communication, which we'll be discussing as well. But a very powerful way of doing your year-end work for your client. Something to note, there are I think it's the biggest change in 30 years to presentation of financial statements. So for those of you who are CPAs especially, you will notice this has come down the pipeline for you. Biggest change in 30 years, yeah. And it's called the CSRS 4200, which basically means the Canadian Standard on Related Services. In the past, we had notice to readers, review engagements, and audits, and that has changed a little bit. And it is effective for any periods that are ending on or after December 14th of 2021. So this has already come into effect. Many of you may have seen these changes happen with within your firms. And very importantly, does work papers comply with CSRS 4200? Yes, it absolutely does. Certain things that we have, the compilation engagement report, we'll be going through the things like the letters a little bit more today and in the advanced session. So these documents are included in work papers. They are updated for the CSRS 4200. I'm just going to take you now. There's this want to learn more. If you go into the QuickBooks or the help environment, it will bring up a bunch of different items that you can look at. One of them being this link here. And this talks specifically about what you need to know about the new standard CSRS 4200 compilation engagements. So very important there. You can also Google the CRA's link on it, the CPA's link on it for the compilation standard, which gives you a lot of resources. But then QuickBooks themselves has a blog that is very comprehensive as well. Okay. And the last tab or item in the books to tax area is, of course, the income tax tab. This is the tab that we take what we have in our work papers and we map the accounts in our chart of accounts to the GIFI codes. So GIFI is the General Index of Financial Information that the CRA uses to compile the data and to have the data presented specifically on the Schedule 100 and the Schedule 125, which are the balance sheet and the income statement. All right, so ProTax T2, let's take a look around and see what its offerings are and why we want to use it. So why would we use ProTax? Well, ProTax is a cloud-based application. So gone are the days of the desktop-based programs where you have to deal with different files and file sizes, things like that. So some of the advantages that we've mentioned here include never needing to install, update, or manage your apps or your client data. Really important, a lot of administrative or IT time can be spent installing desktop programs, updating these programs constantly, and then managing the apps as well. The firm that I articled with, I was kind of the IT guy there. So I was empowered, shall we say, to manage all of the desktop updates, which happen constantly. The CRA may, update information. The government might update information. There's bug fixes, things like that. With ProTax, because it's cloud-based, you never have to worry about any of that. You just need a web browser that you can access to access ProTax. Something that I find really important, and you should as well, that ProTax uses the same Intuit tax engine that has powered millions of tax returns. So Intuit has their desktop application called Profile that has been out for many, many years. And it's the Profile engine that is powering ProTax as well. So millions of tax returns have been filed using this tax engine. And we will talk about a couple of really cool features with ProTax, such as their auditor and their new live auditor. Some other advantages: you can quickly toggle between your client file and the tax return. Again, this is in the QBO, the QuickBooks Online environment. If you have a client that is on QuickBooks Online, it is very easy to toggle between their file and the tax return. And again, remember, the work papers is kind of the intermediary that sits between the client file and the tax file, and lets you make adjustments to the client's year end, which then automatically get reflected in the client's books, and they all automatically carry forward to the tax return. So you've got really one environment that handles everything from the books to the tax. And really importantly, obviously, to mention is that PC or Mac, it does not matter. As long as you have a web browser and you can access the internet, you will have access to ProTax. Okay, so what years does ProTax cover? The T1 module, so the personal tax module, covers from 2018 to 2021. It will be updated at the end of this current calendar year, 2022. That will likely be done in January or February when the CRA opens itself up to filings for 2022 tax returns. ProTax T2 goes all the way back to 2015. So you can go from 2015 all the way to year ends ending in 2022 for your corporate tax returns. All right, and so purchasing, how do you purchase ProTax? What's the cost of it? Very easy to purchase. When you are in your QBOA file, your QuickBooks Online Accountant file, as you can see with the screenshot on the left, if you scroll down and select ProTax from the left-hand side, if you do not yet have a subscription or have any T2s that you have prepared, you will be faced with this opening screen, which will allow you to start your first tax return for free and to purchase ProTax. Now, the way that ProTax works is they are, and both the T1 and the T2 modules are based on yearly subscriptions. So it's a one-time annual fee. And the T1 filing cost is $450. That's for the personal tax returns. And then for the T2, which is the corporate tax returns, the one we're talking about today, the annual cost is $750 per year. And that gives you unlimited filing of tax returns. And anyone in your firm or your company that is utilizing your QBOA account to file those T2 returns has access to those as well. Couple new updates that I'll be sharing: the ability to chat and take notes and share with one another, or take personal notes in the T2 files as well. So in the ProTax environment. So some good updates that we have this year. So that's how you purchase it. One thing I should mention is at the top right hand of your QBOA screen, you will see that gear module. If you click on the subscriptions, that will take you to the subscriptions that you've paid for the year, so that you can see if you've subscribed for the T1 or T2 modules, and those auto renew at the end of every year. You can shut off the auto renewal, or you can have them auto renew at the end of every year. Question about renewal fees. It's the same cost for every year. They are currently discounted from $500 to $450 for the T1s, and from $875 to $750 for the T2 filings. Okay, so what's the easiest way to access what's new in ProTax? Well, if you are in ProTax, at the top right, you will see a little icon that looks like a gift with some wording next to it that says what's new. That's the best way to stay on top of what is new in the ProTax environment, and what you can access specifically for things like any updates, any bug fixes, things like that as well. Okay, let me hop out of here and I will show you what the what's new will take you to. When you click on that, it'll take you to the ProTax release notes. I'd say hop in here once in a while to see any updates on any releases. As you can see, the last update now is September 21st. We will be seeing quite a few updates as our T1 tax season opens again shortly in the new year, as well as the T1, T2, and T3. So just scrolling through, as you can see, there are many, many updates. Couple of really important things this year we will be talking about in the advanced module, the T2 foreign reporting requirements management system. Really, really important changes that can have significant effects on your clients this year. They can have some penalties imposed if they do not specifically conform to these filings. And that's for any Canadian entity that has any foreign relations. Again, all the updates that are featured that happen within the ProTax environment are featured here. So that's where you can access the ProTax release notes. And next, of course, very importantly, is the introduction to ProTax T2. The getting help part of ProTax T2. Intuit makes it very easy to get help on ProTax. Various ways that you can get the help. Something that's common to the whole QBOA environment is the help button at the top of the screen. Once you are in ProTax itself, at the very bottom right hand, you will see the blue bubble that says ProTax Help. That allows you to obtain help via phone, via chat, via articles, things like that. Any known environment questions, FAQs, that's where you can access the ProTax Help. So many, many resources that Intuit has created for you to access the help. Additionally, they have videos that are, I would say, a good length videos, short enough that they give you the information but aren't too daunting, and they're broken up. I've included a QR code here. If you want, take your smartphone and aim it at the screen at the QR code, and that will open the link directly for these videos. Some of the videos that they have, how to buy ProTax in QuickBooks Online Accountant, how to bring data in from ProTax and other software, which we'll be talking about today. How to e-file returns in ProTax, how to use work papers, which we'll be talking about today as well. So, and the longest video, as you can see here, is under 12 minutes, so not too daunting at all. Okay, so let's jump into the ProTax environment. Best thing to do is to get set up using the tax settings, the tax settings tab. The tax settings tab is the little gear icon when you are in ProTax, top right-hand corner, very similar to the gear icon that you have in your QBOA environment. When you click on that, it brings up now 5 different tabs. One is new for this year. First off is the e-file tab. Now that is for us e-filers. Easiest way to file a tax return is to do it via e-file. Here is where you enter your e-file number and your password that you have. Every employee in your firm would have one, so they would enter their e-file number and their user specific password as well. Something to note, very, very important to register for your e-filing access. If you have not registered previously, you can register at any time. It is an annual requirement, so you have to renew your registration every year. That renewal is open already. I've already done mine. I did mine on November 1st of this year, and I have yet to hear back. So it's November 17th. The CRA says it can take up to 30 days to meet their suitability screening credentials. So please ensure that you renew as soon as you can. Put that on your calendar. I say make it a recurring event, an annual event on your calendar, so that you renew with ample time and you don't face an expired e-filing credentials, and then you can't e-file tax returns. A couple other things to note that's really important. Years ago, I did not file a GST return for one of my corporations on time, and I was not allowed to renew my e-file until I had filed that GST return. So if you have any outstanding compliance filings, make sure to get those caught up before you renew for the e-file program. A few changes as well this year. In this year's e-file renewal, the CRA is asking for your rep ID. So that is new from last year. So important to have your rep ID, and important to have it in an active status as well. And we'll talk about that. Okay, so next to the e-file tab is the new Preparer Info tab. I talked about your rep ID. Also, here's the group ID or the business number. Ensure that you fill in these. What this Preparer Info tab does is it allows you to have the information that transfers to the relevant documents in ProTax, such as the business consent form, things like that. So once you have entered it in this area, it will flow through to the other documents. So this is a new tab for this year. One thing to note is that the information that relates to your business number, that is in your QBOA settings. So as you can see on the screen here in the blue, the business number is editable in the QBOA settings. And I think that's now been updated to be the business number and the firm name. So those parts, you have to go to QBOA settings to change those. The notes from the rep ID or the represented client, I actually spoke with the CRA directly. There was an October 17th mandate. Any rep IDs that had any information that was missing, such as social insurance numbers, date of births, postal codes, tax, any kind of tax info. Though what happened to any of that, any clients with the rep IDs that had missing information is that their accounts were deactivated or, let's say, expired or put on hold, requires you to have a new code sent by snail mail. So just note that that takes, however long snail mail takes to arrive, to refresh or renew your rep ID. So really important there. We had one of our employees at Tenjago had talked to the CRA rep as his had expired. The rep he talked to said something about a 4-year expiry, but I also talked to the CRA and they couldn't find anything on this 4-year expiry. To the best of our knowledge, it is, if yours has expired, it's due to additional information needed from you. So if you check your rep ID online for the last updated, and log in just to make sure that yours is up to date. Also, some changes that the CRA are making. There's a new process for confirming a representative. The CRA is really pointing people and businesses to opening up a My Account or a My Business account. I think we'll see this even more and more. So what we do at Tenjago is we have all of our clients, we suggest to all of our clients to open up a My Account and a My Business account. One thing to note here, when they do, when they're registered, enable email notifications. So same with your firm. Anytime you are authorized as a representative on a file, you will get an email notification. There are a couple of additional steps there that are really important to go through. So make sure to take a look at this website. Just note that for representatives who use e-file and certified tax software, such as ProTax, to submit the client's returns, you will not be impacted by the authorization requests, but others potentially will be. And there's a lot of extra information needed. All right, so enough about the prepare information, represent a client. Now on to T3 transmission. So T3s, really important to note is that the CRA is not accepting some former ways of transmitting T3s. So ProTax has now updated its software. I think it was actually last year. You can transmit T3s through ProTax. The XML file days, I believe, are gone. And then we have the print tab. So from the print tab, this is where you can create print sets. You can create print sets for your T1s, for your T2s, for your T3s, things that you want to give to your clients, print sets you want to give to your clients. You can change the print order. You can drag and drop from the list that you're given. So a lot of different variations there and a lot of flexibility in printing your clients' tax returns for them. If you want to add a new print set, you just click at the top, and same with the full QBOA environment. It's very similar. At the very top, you will have that plus sign and the add. That will get you. That'll be in the drop-down list. That's where you can create a new print set very easily. Okay, and then the last one in the tax settings area is the letters. And this is a very powerful area that you can create your letters, your templates for your clients. Most of the letters you can view and customize, so you can edit those. You can also create your own letters from scratch. There's a lot of different options there, and we'll be going through the letters more specifically in the advanced version of the ProTax webinar. This screen just gives you an idea of what the letters tab looks like. Very easy to navigate. On the right-hand side, you will see all of the data input cells that are available. So these are the cells that pull the data directly from your client's area, depending on which client you're working in. Very easy to edit the letter templates. You can type in new information, you can remove any of the data, you can add the input cells, or you can remove those as well very easily by dragging and dropping, and also reorganizing them by dragging and dropping too. Very important as well in ProTax, you have the ability to import T2 files. So multiple different ways that you can import. Again, if you're starting with your first T2, you will see this kind of screen appear. You can see number 1, we've talked about what's new. Number 2, purchase your T2 subscription. You can carry forward returns, if you see here, from tax cycle, and you can also import returns from profile. So a lot of different options. So if you haven't been working in the ProTax environment previously, if you've been working with tax cycle or ProTax, you have the ability to carry forward or import those returns as well. If you were going to import a T2 return, a corporate tax return from profile, this is the screen you will see. And then from here, you can basically browse your returns. You can add a bunch of different returns and import them at the same time. So very easy, not too time consuming because you can do multiple returns at one time. Also, something kind of cool to note is that when you import T2 files, if you have that client already in your QBOA environment, ProTax will attempt to match that client up with one of the clients that's in your database already. If not, you can add a new client as well. And again, importantly too, you can change the return name or add a return name to make it very easy for you to identify which return you're working with. After you import the returns, you'll see this screen that talks about your returns being ready to go. You can get to filing those returns in ProTax. Okay, so and a brief overview of ProTax itself. When you jump into the ProTax module, that is on your left-hand screen, as we talked about from the QBOA environment, you will get a screen that looks like this. This is basically your database of any existing tax returns that you have, any new ones that you want to create, and things that you want to do. So if we take a look at bubble number 1, we get to choose the tax module. Again, ProTax handles 3 different types. So we've got the T1s, the personal tax returns, the T2s, which are the corporate tax returns, and also the T3s, which are the trust returns. So ProTax allows you to file all 3 of those. Number 2, if you have, hundreds of tax returns, hundreds of clients, and you don't want to scroll through and search that way, you can search by client name. So, again, if you are used to the QBOA environment, it's a pretty powerful way of searching, and many different ways that you can search by client name. And that's just in the little input box above the client name itself. Number 3, the bubble, you can filter by tax year. So if you only, for example, want to see last year's tax returns or this year's tax returns or returns that you did in 2019, you can filter those by tax year as well, which is some good, powerful filtering ability, as well as filtering by tax status. So number 4 has a drop down for the status of your tax return. So ones that are in progress, tax returns that have been accepted if you've e-filed, ones that have not been accepted, so if they've been rejected for some reason, or tax returns that you have archived. So if you want to take those tax returns off your main screen, you don't want to have them seen on your main screen, especially if you're finished with them, you can also archive them as well. Okay, and the green bubble at the top right, create new return. This is where you create a new T2. ProTax has the ability to create new tax returns. You can import tax returns, or you can bring them forward from work papers. So you have a lot of different options in ProTax. your client does not have to be in QuickBooks Online to use ProTax. So that's an important thing to note. If you have a client that is not using QuickBooks Online, you can still prepare their tax return for them regardless. And then different action items that you can do, bubble number 6 there. When you are in a return itself, you can click on the drop down. If you just click specifically, that'll allow you to view the return, which basically means that it opens a return. Clicking on the drop down allows you to carry forward a return. You can duplicate returns. So if you're looking at different scenarios, other ways of doing returns. And again, remember, you can name your returns so that if you are doing something like different scenarios, you can name them so they make a lot of sense to you. You can rename them as well. Note that there is not a delete return that you can do from this box. You can archive returns from the main screen, but you cannot delete returns. You have to be in the tax return itself to be able to delete it. Okay, so let's do a tour of WorkPapers. WorkPapers is in the Books to Tax area. If you're in your QBOA, your QuickBooks Online Accountant environment, at the top left where it says Accountant, under Overview, you will see the Books to Tax tab, which gets you into the Books Review, the WorkPapers, and the Income Tax, as I explained previously. Now we'll focus on the WorkPapers, so the second tab there. And once you jump into the WorkPapers environment, remember, to access this, you have to be in your client's file. That will give you the access to Books to Tax tab. Once you are in here, you will see the different items available to you and that deal specifically with the workpaper that you are working on or the client that you're working on. So first of all, we have the fiscal year. So if it is their tax year 2021, as we said, ProTax will handle up to tax years ending in 2022. The accounting method that you're using. So number 2, in Canada, most industries, we have to use the accrual basis of accounting. In the US, they can use the cash basis for clients as well, but that's pretty restricted in Canada, such as farmers can use the cash basis of accounting. So right there, very easy to see that you're using the accrual basis. Bubble number 3, the Books to Tax actions. So that's that list of 4 tabs, and we'll go through those with the year-end tasks, the documents, the review and adjust, and the grouping and statements. We'll be talking about all of those today. Number 4, the green button at the top right hand is the Start Return in ProTax. So that's where you start your T2 in ProTax. And then number 5, the WorkPapers tab, sorry, I described those already. The Books to Tax actions, so those are the different actions that you can access via that drop down, and we'll go through an example for that when we jump into ProTax itself. Okay, so if we look at the specific tabs that with those 4 tabs, the year-end tasks, documents, review and adjust, and grouping and statements. The first one is the year-end tasks. This is a great checklist that you can create, you can duplicate, you can have your team use as the full checklist for doing the year-end work papers or the year-end tasks for your clients. You can edit or you can delete individual tasks. So, 2 options there in the different tasks and the items that you have selected or chosen as part of your checklist. You can add your own tasks. You and your team can also indicate the completion status for each task. So that's really important. If you take a look at the right-hand side there, the to-do, that gives you a really good indicator of where they are on the file and what area of the file they are in. Just a really good communication tool. So is it something that's waiting to do, or is it something that's to do, something that you're waiting on for some information or waiting to complete, or something that's actually been done? And then something to note on the right-hand side there, when you have an item, you also have the ability to add a link into that item. So for example, if you have an article, a CRA article that's specific to something, you can add the link to that CRA article. And this works great in a firm environment or a team environment, because that allows you, if there is something specific, the person working on the file can click on that link directly to be able to give them more information as to what that relates to as well. Okay, so the second tab, first we have the year-end tasks, and the second one is the documents. Really powerful and important part of the work papers environment is the documents section. We talked about letters and being able to utilize those in the QBOA environment. Something that's really that works really well is the documents section to upload different documents, such as supporting documents for your clients' files that you're working through, and specifically each area. So if you notice here, when you open the documents tab, you'll see Work Papers has created folders that will be based on your client's chart of accounts. So that's specific to your client's chart of accounts. You can also add in general folders for other items or documents of your clients. Things that I really encourage to be added as items into the general area: your client's incorporation documents. Really important. How often do you have to access clients' incorporation documents? What was the incorporation date? Who are the directors? Things like that from a client standpoint. And because ProTax and QBOA are cloud-based, you have worldwide access to these documents. So you don't necessarily have to be in your office trying to find documents on your server, for example. So if you've got those incorporation documents somewhere on your server, they can't necessarily be accessed remotely. Whereas in a ProTax environment, in the work papers, you can access documents like that from anywhere in the world. So really important ability there. And also note that you can create folders from templates. You can import existing folder structures from other client files as well. This screenshot gives an example where you can add in links, and again, URLs, links that are specific. I always like to give the example of, CRA rulings or things like that, things to note, a treatment of files and different areas. Very easy to add a link into here, into any of the areas as well. Okay, so that's the document side. The next tab is the review and adjust part. So this is the area where you are taking a look at your clients' accounting records, your bookkeeping records at year end, and you're looking to see any adjustments that need to be made. For those of you that are in a firm environment and are used to working through this, you'll find this is laid out very intuitively, and it'll have a very familiar feeling to you. So this is kind of where the account analysis is best happens at year end. So this is where you do the account analysis. This is where you would do a year end adjusting entries. And really important to note, year end adjusting entries that you make will then have the ability to flow back into your client's QBO file specifically. So really important, you don't have to do that double entry. Gone are the days of getting the trial balance set up and adjusted, and then having to manually enter those adjusting entries into your client's data. So you can do that all throughout with the review and adjust tab. There's also a slider that you will note. See bubble number 1. This is your trial balance view. So it allows you to have a more simplified view or a more detailed view on your trial balance. And I'll go through that as we do the live demo as well. Just gives you access to a lot more information. But if you want a better, just a glance at things, you can toggle that off as well. Printer icon. So you can print out a hard copy of the trial balance. So really important. I know we all try to save paper these days, but you can still have the ability to print out documents as well. The gear icon allows you to add or remove columns, so you can customize those to your liking as well. And then number 4, the run report. That allows you to export the trial balance to Excel. So really important that you can export it to a spreadsheet as well. And then but area number 5 there, the adjust area is where you can make adjustments. This is where you can also add notes, and we'll talk about the notes. Really, really important and powerful area to communicate with your team as well. This is also where you can add specific attachments. So again, any kind of source documents that you have, if you're looking at bank statements, things like that, that's where you can add them specifically right into that area. And then finally, the work paper, the grouping and statements area of work papers. This is the tab that you use when you are creating account groupings, specifically for financial statement presentation. So for example, if we have 5 different bank accounts, if we've got TD, CIBC, RBC, an ATB savings account, you can group those into something called, say, cash and cash equivalents. That's where you have those groupings that will give your financial statements a much cleaner look. You can also create new groups or drag and drop accounts into groups themselves. On the right-hand side, you see that little note tab, and we'll go through that again. The ability to add notes to any area, which is really great for facilitating communication with your team. I talked about the cash. This is just giving an example of the cash on hand. And when you see an arrow that is pointed to the right, that means that is a grouped accounts. When you click on that, it will drop down and show you the accounts that belong in that grouping. At the right-hand side, if we look, we're talking about our cash on hand. This is how it will appear then on your financial statements. And when you export to Excel, you will notice the different worksheets that are available to you. Really, it's a great function to have, and presents the financial statements very easily, creates those for you. Okay, so before we head on to tax mapping at T2, let's take a look at the books to tax area for a test client here. Notice that we're in the accountant area, we're in the books to tax area. So when you access that from the left-hand side, that's where you have the books review, the work papers or income tax. If you want to jump into that specifically, right from there, if you click on the books to tax itself, then you are presented with the 3 in that manner as well. So it doesn't matter which way you access it. To give you a bit of a review of books review, this is that first tab, which is where you want to do your monthly reviews. You can also do the cleanups from here. And the cleanups are what allow you, as I had spoken about, to have that setup tab and to clean up your clients' accounts. The monthly tab is what you do for your monthly or your quarterly statements. And it allows you to look at the transactions, to review those, the reconciliations, to look at those, to do a final review, and then to wrap up your clients' monthly books. Okay, so the work papers environment, Here we talked about, which tax year, there's your accrual basis, and there's your 4 tabs. So year-end tasks, here's, for example, we have send an engagement letter. You can have the task have tips in it. You can have detailed instructions for your team. And then again, at the right-hand side is where you complete your status. So is that to do, waiting, or done? Again, you can import tasks from a template. So any template that you have, if you have another client file that you've got the same tasks that you want to replicate, you can add a task specifically. And this is where you add the item name. And remember, you can have the link with a URL link to it as well. So some link to specific information that relates to that area of the client file. The books to tax actions that I talked about as well. This allows you to carry forward from a previous year. So that's great. You can export the Giphy file once we do the Giphy mapping, and we'll get into that next. You can download the work papers to zip. So that's really important, because if you need that zip file and the data that you need to access somewhere else, you can download that as well. And it gives you ability to lock the file as well. So once it's completed and you want to lock it, that's where you do that. Okay, if we jump into the documents area, this is what we talked about that maps to your client's chart of accounts. You'll have all the different accounts that are in there, such as, say, the checking accounts, bank statement, attachments, things like that. Many different areas that you can go through. And again, at the right-hand side, gives you other options. Here we can download a folder. We can add those attachments that are specific to that area. We can add those links in. We can also mark files for carry forward. So really important feature or function there as well. Once you've attached a document to a specific area, you can have that ability to download that document again. You can rename that document. So if you wanted to change the name for some reason, you can also delete documents, of course, that are attached to the work papers documents area. Nice little feature. The last updated tells you when that document was last updated as well. So another handy feature to have as well. If we jump into the review and adjust area, that's what I talked about with the ability to do your adjusting entries and to review each line item or each account on the trial balance. Options that we have at the right-hand side, this is where we can make an adjustment. That's where we can do an adjusting entry. This is where we can manage attachments, so having attachments as well. And I talked about a little bit about those notes. So the notes, really handy if you are communicating with your team on a specific file, or even internal notes that you want to leave to yourself. You can have that attached to each account specifically. So you add in your note, you can have, bulleted items, bold, highlight, star them as your, if you need to star them for some reason. And this is where you select if you want the note to be available to your team, or if you want a note available only to yourself. So really important there. If you have certain sensitive information that you should be the only one that is able to view with that note, you can have that available only to yourself. So a really important function in the communication part of work papers. The trial balance view. This is the toggle on and off view that gives you access to more information on your trial balance. As you can see right now, we have the current year, which is selected as tax year 2019. We've got the previous year, and then standard trial balances that we see, the percentage change and the dollar change, along with any adjusting entries that we have done in the year. If we toggle that view to on, we'll see that it gives us a lot more information. So there we've got the debits and the credits split out with each year, as well as the changes here, and the adjusting entries, debits and credits as well. So it just gives you access to having more information available with the debits and credits. And again, you have the same adjustment options. Okay, and then the groupings and statements. So this is where I talked about with the financial statements, where you want to group certain items. If you don't want to have all of your bank accounts appear on the financial statements, you can group them as one. Note here that you can add your notes right into here as well. So again, another area to add notes, a lot of communication tools that you have available to you. And again, you can add notes from the side here. You can add attachment. You can also group and ungroup. To group items or ungroup them, you can also drag and drop as well. Running your report, as I talked about, that's where you can export it as Excel, export it to Excel. So if you need to do certain other functions to it, to your client file, you can export them through Excel, and then you can work on them in a spreadsheet environment. Okay, so let's jump back. And we'll run through the tax mapping at T2, and then we're going to take a short break. So when you are in Books to Tax, the last area is the income tax tab. So you've got your books review that we talked about. We just went through work papers, and now the Income Tax Act is the income tax area is what you want to jump into when you want to have your chart of accounts go through to your income tax return. So that's if either you're exporting it or you're sending it through to ProTax. And what the income tax tab does is this allows you to map your chart of accounts to your GIFI codes. So those general index of financial information codes that the CRA requires. Again, if you are accessing ProTax or accessing from QBOA, you click that Books to Tax and then the Income Tax tab as well. On this layout, you will see the tax line, the number of accounts on that tax line, and the amount. In this screenshot, we see that we're dealing with tax year 2021. Again, we're on the accrual basis, and it shows us the actual dates of the tax year. So in this case, January 1st to December 31st of 2021. Jumping into each item, this is where you map it to GIFI. If you see the change tax line on the right-hand side, that'll pop up once you click on one of the items on the left hand. So for example, this one we've got advertising and promotion. Very, very easy to navigate in ProTax or the QBOA environment. You can also search by line items. So if you don't know a specific GIFI code, you can type in the explanation or the description of what you're looking for and map it there. So this example here, they are changing it to salaries and wages from advertising and promotion, which was mapped incorrectly. And I'll take you through that area last, and then we'll take a break. So that's our income tax tab. Again, we've got the books review, the work papers, and the income tax. It will let us know any accounts that we have not mapped. And this is where we can very easily assign a tax line. Just click on it, and that will pop up. If we are looking at something that's already been mapped, we can edit it, and it will pop up that amount there. ProTax is great in giving you some, helpful hints. Here it says you have an atypical value for this account. Consider remapping. So this one, maybe it's mapped to the wrong one. If we want to look at cash deposits, we can select from the list that drops down. We can also just type in and it will give us the keyword. So really easy to access that. To then save it, you just click on the save button and it will be saved to the tax mapping. Books to tax actions. After we've mapped everything, we can export it to a Giphy file from here, or we can continue to start the return in ProTax. So we're going to take a quick break here and then come back in, say, just 5 minutes, a very quick break, and then we will get on to our next area, which will be further exploring working papers and starting T2s from working papers. All right, well, hopefully you've had a chance to stretch. Okay, let's get back into it. Okay, so to start a T2 from work papers, let's just jump back in here. Very easy. When you're in the work papers environment, after you've done the income tax mapping, the mapping to the GIFI, very easy to start your return in ProTax just by clicking the top green button, Start Return in ProTax. So really easy to move from that work papers environment to your ProTax or to your tax environment. Something to note, when you see, when you start the return in ProTax, it will autofill some of the information for you when you are moving from work papers, but you do also have the ability to create tax returns by uploading a file, a GIFI file, or starting a blank tax return. And today's exercise we're going to be going through, we will be starting a blank tax return. So we'll run through that for you as well. Okay. Before we jump in there, I'm just going to show you one other screen again to refresh your memory. To access the tax settings, that is on the top right-hand corner, where we talked about the e-file preparer information, the T3 transmission, printing, creating those print sets, as well as the letters. Just wanted to review that with you and forgot to do before I jump back in. Okay, so let's look at a basic T2. T2, again, is your corporate tax return, different than the T1, which is the personal tax return. Those webinars for T1, we will be teaching in January and February. So if you are interested in those, head to Intuit's website and check out the specific dates there. Something that I've included here that I want to mention before we jump into ProTax is to give you an indication of the different colors that are used in ProTax, specifically in the fields in ProTax. Really important to note these. I say, like, take a screenshot, print this out, because you will be faced with these often in your ProTax environment. There are different colors of cells. If you have a purple cell, that is an amount that's been carried forward from a previous tax return. So really important that that's information is carried forward and that can be accessed in the ProTax environment very easily. And that cell is designated purple. Red means that it's a cell that's been overridden. So it is like a calculated cell that you have manually overridden. That'll appear as red. A note that I have at the bottom here, to delete an overridden cell, you clear the contents of the cell, then you tab out. So because we don't have the ability to do a right-hand click, we're in a browser environment, we can't right-click and take off that override there. The way we do it in the ProTax environment is we just highlight the cell, hit delete, so you delete what you've overwritten in the cell, hit tab out, and within a couple of seconds, you will see that cell update. It will no longer be red. It will return to its original format and the original number that was in there. If a cell is blue, that is a cell that's been calculated by the ProTax engine. So that ProTax engine that's been used to file millions of tax returns and does all of the calculations is constantly updated, and that cells that are reflected by those calculated cells are shown in blue. Something else to note here, the go-to source. So if you see an arrow that's kind of to the right and then points up, you can click that and that'll take you directly to where ProTax got the information for that cell. So really handy way of jumping to the cell that has the original data or the original information in it. Okay, so what are the available T2 forms, the corporate tax forms in ProTax? ProTax has almost all tax forms available. The only limitation is the province of Quebec, unfortunately. Not all of the forms are available there. But other than that, ProTax is pretty much good to go. Since its inception a few years ago, ProTax, the technicians have been adding forms as they have gone along, and it's a very comprehensive, very complete program now. Okay, so the ProTax environment, we're finally here. It starts off with the info page. So the info page, basically, if you take a look at the left-hand side here, you'll see a few important items. There is your go-to, your searchability, really, really powerful search capabilities here. You have the forms and the auditor section. We will be talking more about the auditor in the advanced webinar for ProTax. But the auditor basically looks at how you are doing a tax return and says, looks like you might have done something wrong, or you might have missed information here. So it's a really powerful auditor. And again, it's part of that ProTax engine to notify you of any missing or invalid information. Now, we also have a super cool feature, which is the live auditor, which allows you to see items in your tax return that could be incorrect or missing as you go along. So really, really important and powerful feature that you can toggle on or off if you like. On the info page as well, we see the data input or the PDF form. The difference between those, the data is where you input all of the different numbers or the data into your ProTax return. The PDF form is what it will look like. So if you're used to what the T2 corporate tax returns look like, this is what you will see in the PDF form. Along the left-hand side, you see the info on the specific client, and we will jump into the different schedules and forms that make up a part of the corporate tax return. You have the ability to add any new forms or any new letters into your corporate tax return. A very quick keyboard shortcut method that you can do is Control-Alt-S if you are in a PC environment. You can also click on that go-to bar, and we'll jump into there and do that when we are doing and completing our tax return. So really, really easy to navigate ProTax and to access the forms that are available, whether they are added to your current tax return or not. You can also add them and you can also view them. And this gives an example of the quick bar, the search bar. Once you start typing in it, it'll pop up. If you don't have a form that's currently in this specific client's tax return, it will say add form. Otherwise, it'll show that it's already been added and you can jump directly to that form. Also to note, you can use a quick bar to do things like print or share as well. So this is the data input, a better screenshot of where we input our data into our client's tax return. As you can see, most of these fields here are blue. So again, the blue means that they are calculated fields. So again, important to distinguish the purple, the red, and the blue. Oops, jumped ahead. This is the PDF form. So for those of you that are familiar with what a T2, a corporate tax return, looks like, this will give you the visual view of what your tax return will look like once it's been completed, or as you're going along and working on it and you want to take a view of it, you can do that at any time by clicking the PDF form. All right, so we're going to jump into ProTax just before we start with your turn. Make sure you download the materials. Again, if you missed it at the start, those are in the webinar chat. This is the sample exercise that we'll be doing today to create our first T2 corporate tax return in ProTax. I was going to take a break before doing this, but I think we'll jump right through because we can get through this and then maybe get out a little bit early today. All right, so to access ProTax, you click on Accountant and then click on ProTax. There you can access either your T1, T2, or T3 directly. If you click on ProTax itself, it'll take you to the same screen that you can still access all of those just by clicking through. So we will want to make sure that we're in the T2 environment. And then we will select Create New Return. Pulling up your sample exercise, it will look like this. It'll be the one that is scenario 3 on page 15, starting a T2 return. Okay, so creating a new return, we have 3 different options on the left-hand side here. We can use the QuickBooks Client Work Papers, which we talked about before. That's where we go straight from work papers to creating a new tax return. We can upload a Giphy file. You also have the ability to upload TXT or text files as well to into your corporate tax return. And by uploading the Giphy or the TXT, the text files, what it does is it populates all of the different fields for your Schedule 100 and Schedule 125. So those are your balance sheet and your income statement. In this case, we're going to be starting a blank tax return. So select the Start Blank Tax Return. We're going to add a new client. This client is Solar Davis Inc. I'm just going to, you can name it whatever you want to. And one thing that ProTax requires is an email address. So just enter whatever you want to for now. Once you click Save, it will add it into your ProTax environment, and it also adds that client into your QBOA database as well, which makes it much easier for if you are invoicing that client later on, accessing client letters, things like that. So if we go back to our example, we've got our business number, we've got the name of the corporation, the taxation year, and a bunch of different items that we're going to use to complete the tax return itself. So the year start, we're looking at a January to December of 2021 year. Once you hit the year start, it'll automatically calculate 12 months. You can, of course, change that. You can also change the return name and make it specific to something that you will understand. So I'm going to do Solar Davis. This one is test 2. Once you hit tab, then at the bottom right-hand corner, you will see the continue button. And ProTax will start your T2 corporate tax return. A little bit of navigation here. At the top, you'll see the dollar amount that's taxable for your client, the taxes owing or the refund, the balance, the status, are they eligible to e-file, and any attached documents as well. Over to the right, we have our return actions. In the advanced section, we'll be talking about CRA's autofill my return. Here again, you can also import your Giphy. Upload a file if you have your Schedule 100 and 125, if you've got them in Giphy format. You have the ability, really important to note, to export your ProTax return to Profile if you need to. So that's the Intuit's desktop version for tax. You can print the return, print forms or letters, duplicate, save and close. You can share this return with members of your team, rename it, and this is where you delete the tax return. E-filing options we'll talk about in more detail next time, but this gives you the ability to e-file your return and your business consents. Live auditor, I like this toggled on because as you'll see as we go through, it will give you indications of things that maybe are missing or incorrect in your tax return. Lastly here, once you click on the search tab, the quick action tab, it'll pop out a box that allows you to search any forms, letters, very easy. So if we're looking at, balance sheet, we forgot what schedule our balance sheet was. Well, if we need the opening balance sheet, it's schedule 101. The regular balance sheet is schedule 100. We can search by any means. So it's a really powerful, gives you the powerful ability to search. Our auditor, we can toggle between the forms that we're working on and the auditor. Again, the auditor notices mistakes or errors or omissions on your tax return. And we'll talk about that in our advanced section, including the warnings, sign-offs, and overrides. Okay, so let's jump in. We've got our business number here, 130101144 RC0001. Enter that and hit tab. Note that ProTax will check that against the standard algorithmic database and the format of what the business number should be in. If it's incorrect, it will let you know that it's incorrect and that there's an issue with the business number. Legal name of the corporation. Okay, so we've got Solar Davis Inc. You have the option of entering the operating name if it is different from the legal name. Okay, our taxation year. So basically, it's laid out in a very easy format here. Just going down the tabs on the left. Taxation year, we've already entered that taxation year when we started a tax return. So it has taken the first of the year and calculated 12 months. Notice that tab is blue. So we have the ability to override that. Say we didn't have a complete year. Once we hit tab, in a few seconds, we will see that that will turn to red and that will be an overridden tab as well. So that's how we notice, oh, there it turned red. That's how we notice that it's an overridden tab. So it's not the calculated tab. Again, if we want to remove that override, we highlight over that tab and hit delete, then tab out, and it'll return to its calculated value. Okay, are we going to internet file this return? Yes, that's already selected, yes. Then what kind of CCPC? It wasn't, so Canadian Controlled Private Corporation, was it an associated CCPC in the previous year? We're going to select no. Total taxable capital employed. Total capital employed in the previous year, $1,218. Notice that carries forward to the calculated cell below. What jurisdiction are we filing in? We are filing in Ontario. And I should go through some of these, just let you know that there are additional items and information available as we scroll down. So if that's available, you'll see the scroll tab, such as here, I think we are asking, yes, date of incorporation. So the date of incorporation for this company is 2019, January 1st. Jurisdiction, we already filled out with Ontario. Other items that we have on our example, our scenario, is it inactive? No, it's not inactive. Did it use IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards? No. What have we next? Oh, okay, yes, our principal service. So something to note here, we have a drop-down box and we can scroll through all of the different items there. If we want, again, we have the ability to search. So this principal product or service for this company is other management consulting. So if we start typing, that box opens up for us directly. And we've got the code of 541619 there that we can enter. Type of corporation, CCPC. Select that, Canadian Controlled Private Corp. Head office address, that's next. So we are 123, or oops, that's 10 Main Street. And that's in any town. We're in Ontario here. Of course, we're in Canada. Postal code K0A1A0. Okay, so here we've got the standard info files. We've got our T2. This is a schedule 100 and 125, which we'll be going through next time. Information that we have here, the shareholder and signing officer is Francis Forbes. So note that we don't have, which is, say we forgot what schedule that the shareholders go on to. This is a great place where you can go up to the quick access bar, the search tab. I'm just going to type in shareholder because I can't remember which schedule the shareholder information goes on to. So by typing shareholder, tells me it's schedule 50, and note that it says add here. So that signifies that we do not already have that schedule as part of the T2. So let's click add, and we'll add that schedule onto our T2 in ProTax. Note this orange area. That's part of the live auditor telling you that something is missing, that we have to enter information into that screen. So that's part of the live auditor. Some situations you'll see it will actually have a pop-up bubble and tell you what's wrong. So this is Francis Forbes, individual. Unfortunately, we don't have Francis Forbes' social insurance number. We'll have to get it at some point. But Francis owns 100% of the common shares here. Okay. I think I've got everything. Did I miss anything? Oh, signing officer. Note here, again, see the orange tabs showing that there is information missing. So let's do Francis Forbes. Say Francis is a CEO. All right. Ontario, this is an Ontario corporation. So let's click on the Ontario area. And Ontario specialty type. This is an example here of where it says that it kind of gives you an idea that you're missing some information. So please indicate the Ontario specialty type. And here we have it as other. And Ontario is the jurisdiction. So that's a good example of how the live auditor helps you out as you go along. If we click onto the auditor tab, we'll go into this again in more detail in the advanced, but clicking through each of these will take you to the area showing you what isn't complete. So this is the schedule 100 that we'll be doing next time. For example, schedule 125, of course. Oh, it looks like we forgot the contact name for this T2. So we should enter the contact name. Notice here that we have the calculated cell value and the go to source tab, or the go to source arrow there. So if we click the go to source, that is where we actually enter the info for the contact person's name. Clicking on that arrow takes us directly there, which will allow us to edit that field and enter that information. All right, and once we've entered the information, we can go back to the T2. So that'll allow us to jump back to where we were before. So it's great because you have the ability to go to the source information. And once you enter that source information, you can jump directly back to where you were working. If we click our forms and then our PDF form, this will allow us to view the file as it looks, as a completed or in progress corporate tax return. So this is what we're used to seeing as a corporate tax return. That's where that PDF form allows us to do that. And remember, we can print the return using the return actions button. Okay, so I think we are pretty much done for today. If you go into your handout, you'll see the solution to scenario 3 as well, based on the information that we've entered. Let me jump back in here. So our next session, the advanced Pro Tax session for experienced T2 users, is Monday, December 5th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can register for it online as well. And what we will be covering in that session is the letters and consent. We will be looking at the key T2 forms and schedules. We will be looking at that T2 autofill my return. Also how to do a Giphy import. And then the very, very important T2 Foreign Reporting Requirements Management System. New again, as I explained, and very important to know and to file for any foreign relationships. And then you will also have a turn to do an exercise as well. Okay, I think the Intuit advisors have answered most of the questions. Any last questions in these last couple of minutes that you have that I can answer? If so, just type them out. I'll give a couple seconds here. Why no to IFRS? If you're not filing in for that, you can just select the no answer to that. If you are not creating statements, if somebody is not creating statements in the IFRS environment, it gives you the ability to toggle the no or the yes. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining today. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, a good rest of November. And we'll see you on December 5th. It is a free seminar, yes. So you can attend that as well. While you're looking at that, you can also look at the T1 seminars if you're interested in those. Those happen in January and February. So looking forward to seeing you there and answering your questions as well. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Take care.